A chokehold death on the New York City subway sparking serious concerns about transit safety. Not only that, but also mental illness.
Our national correspondent Mike Carter asked New Yorkers how they feel about Daniel Penny, Jordan Neely, and the state of the subway.
Imagine this scenario. You're visiting New York City and you decide to ride the subway. But as you enter the car and those doors come to a close, it hits you. And for the next few minutes, it's just you and whoever's on the train that day. And if things go sideways, you could very well have to make a choice that could affect the rest of your life. And that's exactly what Marine Corps veteran Daniel Penny is now going through. After Penny's attempt to subdue an out-of-control homeless man on a Manhattan subway car led to the man's death, now Penny's been charged with manslaughter.
I think by what he did is going to make other people think twice about helping other people because of the consequences he may pay.
I hope not. We need more heroes like that, especially a Marine.
We need more people like him. He was doing a good deed.
He was over the line. I'm glad he got arrested.
The truth is somewhere in between. If I were on that subway card, I would think I would see him as a hero.
He wasn't a terrorist, but what if the guys on the Paris train hadn't got involved?
He'd been arrested over 40 times, several assaults of elderly women.
What if that was my grandma coming home telling me a story about a man beat me up and nobody did anything?
A lot of people say these far-left DAs, they're kind of letting criminals run loose, and they're going after the good guys.
Absolutely. If they continue, it's only going to be criminals. The good people are going to be locked up someplace.
In New York, for Newsmax, I'm Mike Carter.
Mike, thank you very much. Gerard Felitti is back with us, Senior Counsel for the Lawfare Project. So we wanted to tap into your legal analysis, if we could. We heard the reaction, though, from New Yorkers, and that's real, right? For most of them, overall in that report, they said they were thankful to have a former Marine on the subway tracks to protect them. There were a few voices that said, of course, we'll let the legal system play out, which we know it will. But just your read on this case in particular.
Well, as a lawyer, my read is that we need to let the legal system play itself out. When you take someone's life, even if you didn't intend to, there needs to be an investigation. You need to examine the circumstances. Was it justifiable? Was it self-defense? Was it the defense of others? And that goes to the totality of the circumstances. Was there aggression? Was there an imminent risk of violence? So this is something for a jury to look at, for the DA to consider. But the bigger issue is New York has gotten to a place where you are not safe. The DA is not prosecuting crimes. We feel unsafe on the subways, we feel unsafe on the streets, but we should not have to take the law into our own hands. We need the police to be there. We need the DA to prosecute offenders, not to get to this point.
What are some of the, maybe you want to comment, maybe you don't, but in terms of just an overall general self-defense laws, right? You wonder, when can you get involved? We were listening to that report, and I believe it was a lady that was saying, yeah, someone may not get involved if I'm in trouble, essentially pointing to that. And many may not want to because of what happened. At what point can you defend yourself? Is it only if there's physical altercation, if someone harasses you verbally and it seems like it's going to grow and escalate into something physical? Is there something that a writer can do? What are you supposed to do?
Well, what you're supposed to do first and foremost is to look for help. If you are in that situation, you want to look for law enforcement if they're available. If you're being physically attacked, then yes, you have the right to defend yourself. If you're being verbally accosted, that's different. You can't escalate a verbal altercation by taking a swing at someone. Ultimately, people need to be mindful that there are consequences for their actions, and they need to evaluate the circumstances.
What might we learn that isn't so obvious from that quick video clip throughout the course of potentially a trial?
Well, what we might learn is that there were many people who jumped in. There was the perception of many people that the person was an imminent risk. Otherwise, you would not have had just one person holding him down. From the video clip, you see multiple people involved. So obviously, there looks like there was a shared perception that there was a risk to people on that subway card, and that speaks favorably to the defense. However, we just don't know what was going on through people's minds, and that's something that needs to be sorted out.
Yeah, looking at that case, obviously we don't know what led up to the escalatory moment to where you had not only the chokehold placed on Mr. Neely, but also the two individuals that were restraining his arms. We only know that there were reports that Mr. Neely was acting erratically and that he was shouting things that may have been concerning on that train. But as far as was there a weapon, was there any physical altercation, that hasn't been mentioned yet. Is there any reason why that information may have not been released just yet?
It may not have been released. Again, I'm speculating here. It
Yeah.
may not have been released because we just don't know. It may be that this was a person acting erratically, that Mr. Neely was acting erratically. There was no weapon. There was no physical violence from him. That's why we're not hearing reports of something more having happened. But ultimately, the issue is whether a reasonable person sitting on that subway car would have felt threatened to the point of needing to use force to defend themselves or others. And that's something that will have to play out.
Yeah, again, the fact we're learning more, obviously, about both the Marine and Jordan Neely, his priors, the 40-plus prior arrests. Would that come into evidence or the defense legal strategy when it comes to this case?
Unfortunately, probably not. The past conduct of the victim is not going to be something that's put on trial. However, where it does come into play is this is the question that we should be asking of DA Alvin Bragg, of the New York law enforcement authorities. It's why are people who have this significant criminal record, why are people with mental illness not being under more supervision? Why was he not in jail? If this person was attacking others, if he had a criminal history, why was he out on the streets? And that speaks to criminal justice reform, it speaks to bail reform, and it speaks to the failure of New York City to prosecute offenders and keep them locked up.
And what can the mayor of New York City do? I know you've spoken a lot about mental illness as well. So again, a story that's garnered national attention. We'll continue to follow that.